Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. And today's Doctor Who review is none other than The Robot, Tom Baker's very first story. So, what is the plot of Robot? Well, it turns out that the military have been developing some technology to do with a robot known as K1. Now, what is K1's purpose? K1's purpose is basically just to do anything their masters ask them to do. It's a robot that has been taught not to feel, but with all technology, K1 has its own soul. K1 is a thinking, living being, and it finds itself in constant kind of turmoil. Now, let's just quickly go back a step. Let's go back to the end of Planet of the Spiders, just so that we can kind of catch you up on at least the beginning of this story. It turns out that the Doctor has now regenerated from a James Bond type of character to a flamboyant, alien, kind of all over the place sort of character. Tom Baker's Doctor is a complete revamp of the Doctor who came before him. He is still kind of trying to become himself. He's still trying to develop, and most importantly, he's trying to understand what is expected of him. Now, the one thing quite clear to Tom Baker's Doctor is he hasn't forgotten Sarah, he hasn't forgotten the Brigadier, and he hasn't forgotten all his friends. But his friends really struggle to put up with him in this episode because of the way he's so flamboyant, so over the top, and most importantly, he's so direct. Tom Baker starts this episode by arguing with the Doctor. No, Doctor, I'm the Doctor.
You may be a doctor, but I am the Doctor. The definite article, you might say.
And him and Harry Sullivan have this bittersweet moment in which the Doctor eventually manages to tie Harry Sullivan up in the closet. Yeah, that's a brilliant part of this episode. But then when Harry Sullivan comes out of the closet, nothing new for Doctor Who there, but when Harry Sullivan comes out of the closet, the Doctor has broken into the TARDIS, and the Brigadier begins to ask him what he's doing. He talks to them and explains to them that he's trying to work out a new wardrobe. So the Doctor goes back and forth inside of the police box and comes out in a variety of different outfits. One looking like the Grand Old Duke of York, one looking like a Viking, and just one looking like a clown. Tom Baker comes out in such a variety that it is brilliant, hilarious, and comedic. And in one of the outfits, the Doctor asks whether he would cause a lot of attention, to which the Brigadier says, yeah, I think as a top secret organisation, you walking around like a clown may pretty much cause a lot of attention to be drawn our way. The Doctor then manages to come up with his classic brown hat and long scarf.
Tell me on the way, Brigadier, tell me on the way. Have you no sense of emergency?
They then go to investigate where all these attacks on military have been happening with this K1 robot. And the Doctor expresses how he doesn't like the word impregnable. Why don't you like the word impregnable, Doctor?
Brigadier, because it's so close to the word unsinkable. And that's what they said to the Titanic till it hit the iceberg. Plop, 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 plop.
However, then Sarah Jane gets caught up whilst trying to investigate. Using her journalistic traits, she goes into the facility and, of course, gets caught. However, that's not the worst of it. Eventually, when she gets closer and closer to the K1 robot, she tries to explain to it and express to it that it has its own feelings, it should rebel against its masters and stop destroying people. But the K1 robot is adamant that the way it's been programmed makes it hard for it to break out of this cycle. K1 Robot then kidnaps Sarah Jane and starts marching down the street. But the worst part is it begins to grow and grow and grow to the size of a titan. The Doctor and Unit try and blow it up, but the Doctor points out that if they don't shrink it down and save Sarah Jane, that she may end up on the floor as splat. They eventually manage to shrink it and save Sarah in the process. However, the Doctor does find himself feeling bad for destroying the machine. However, the worst of their troubles aren't over when it turns out that the robot isn't fully defeated, and of course it has the power to control nuclear missiles. It goes to try and attack a nuclear encampment, but luckily the Doctor and his friends are on hand to stop it once and for all. After defeating the robot, Sarah gets ready to go off on another adventure. However, Harry Sullivan stumbles on her and the Doctor going off in the police box, and he's completely confused how the two of them are going to fit into one tiny police box.
Well, you can always go in and prove that it is entirely stupid.
So Harry Sullivan goes inside the police box, and the group decides to go off for an adventure in time and space. So, what did I think of Robot? Honestly, I really like this story. Not only for the bizarreness of Tom Baker's entrance into the role, not only for his boldness, his creativity, and his humour, but I really liked it because I can kind of compare this story in a way to King Kong. It's a kind of monster and the woman sort of story, and I love this kind of breakdown, how you can compare it to something like King Kong, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and just any story in which there is a creature who's doing something, or in this case a robot, and even though people see it as an unthinking, unyielding creation, it does have its own purpose, and at the end of the day it is just doing what it was bred or born to do. And I feel like the way that Sarah Jane really shows sympathy for the robot in this story is brilliant, especially when you consider most of Unit is just chasing it around like it's another abomination or another creature that's fallen from the stars. And especially the way that the Doctor also points out in this story, the military mind is hilarious. I mean, the amount of times that Unit in the past and even in the present of Tom Baker's incarnation finds himself watching them shoot bullets, shoot rocket launchers, that's something that quite clearly can most probably be impenetrable to it. It's funny that they talk about somewhere being impregnable, but yet they find themselves not really looking at things from the full picture. And I feel like that's what's brilliant with Tom Baker's Doctor. He kind of gets them to open their mind up to exactly what's going on. And for that reason, I give Doctor Who Robot a solid 10 out of 10. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next Doctor Who review. Until then, goodbye, stay beautiful, and have an incredible morning, you beautiful, gorgeous people.